Good morning, everyone. My name is Catriona Arnott. I have the pleasure of being this year's community prefect, and I could not be more excited and just a little bit nervous to be here in front of you all today. There's something extra special about chapel speeches. I've always loved them, ever since I watched my very first one here at Appleby. Whether they've made me laugh, cry, or smile extra hard, I've always walked out feeling touched and even more connected to our community than ever. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Whether you're here in the chapel, streaming this live, or wherever you may find yourself sharing this moment with me, just know it means the world. The chapel speech I'll be delivering to you today is not just about me. It's about you too. It's about all of us and how we can create a little community wherever we go. It's written from the heart, with intention, and above all, it's heavily based on Pinterest quotes. Just kidding. It's one of the greatest lessons I've ever had the pleasure of learning, and even more significantly, feeling. It's the idea that we should always strive to build a longer table and never a higher fence. That the greatest leaders care deeply about helping others find the leader in themselves. That as a community, we feel and we celebrate the success of others. That each and every one of us belongs here. The feeling of belonging is one of the most incredible gifts we have to offer to the world. I really, really mean it. Belonging is what brings people together, allows people to be wholeheartedly themselves, and especially what helps people to feel home in a community. Last year, the stimulus package in Capstone was based around the theme of happiness. Totally up my alley. Academic papers about life evaluation, the Dalai Lama on happiness, and even the beauty of funerals in New Orleans. Using the wonderful eye-opening texts provided by the College Board, I chose to write my synthesis paper about a relatively bitter topic, schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is the feeling we get when we are so envious of the success of others that we can't help but find a little delight in their failures or missteps. Last night, my mom and I were going over my chapel speech together, and I was really milling over whether or not schadenfreude was worth mentioning, because I was so worried it would seem like my heart was in the wrong place. After all, I am giving a speech about belonging and community, but I'll get back to that in a second. When schadenfreude knocks, I honestly feel like the worst person in the world. I consider myself such a lover of people that sometimes I wonder how this could even cross my mind at all. So I turned to my mom and I said, "Does that make me a bad person?" And she said, "No, not at all." And she's right. At my wise old age of 17, about 9 months since I started writing that very capstone paper, I love that I am coming to know the feeling of sharing joy with others. Schadenfreude is never ever me wishing bad things on other people. I have realized that although envy is almost an inevitable reflex for so many of us, it's what we choose to do next that is ultimately defining of our character. So, on days where I was tempted to bask in the schadenfreude and give in to my frustration with myself, it helped me to think of some of the people and the leaders that I admire most in my own life. People who make me want to be a better person. And I remember that while these people are all extraordinarily caring, humble, and genuine, above all, they root for the growth of others. The best leaders I have ever known work to help other people succeed, and never once does it take away from their own potential. In fact, celebrating others and wanting them to thrive only adds value to our own lives. Fostering belonging is wonderful in the sense that there's no limit to it. There's a seat for all of us at the table, and it's always more the merrier. In my little corner of the universe, one of my absolute favorite things to see is just that. People who are happy for someone else's happiness. We all have people like these in our lives, whether they're fully aware of their impact or not. If you know me, you know that I wouldn't give this speech without squeezing in a little shout out to Jenna, last year's community prefect. She selflessly shared her platform, her voice, and the floor in a way that allowed everyone's voice to be uplifted and heard. I had never really seen myself as a leader until her definition and way of doing it showed me what being a leader, formally and informally, is really about. This is one of the reasons I wanted to be community prefect so badly. If I can do one thing at all this year, all I hope is that I might pay forward that very same sense of belonging and help us all recognize the leader in ourselves. Recently, homecoming came and went without really even happening. as will many other community events this year. I sent out my first AC This Weekend email last Thursday, and I couldn't help but notice that it looked a little empty. Sometimes I get a little down because this year is going to look so different for us, and because community runs so deeply here at Appleby that I just want so badly for everyone to feel its magic. In these moments, Ms. Haggie reminds us that where our calendar is missing events, we should strive to build connections among ourselves just the same. Because if at the end of the day, we are able to build relationships, extend our community, and foster that same sense of belonging, what more could we possibly ask for? My favorite TED Talk is this one by Drew Dudley entitled Everyday Leadership. It describes how one goofy, kind interaction between him and a stranger entirely prevented said stranger from dropping out of university on the first day, a moment during which Dudley had no idea of his impact until years later when the same girl tracked him down and told him. The funny part was, though, that he had absolutely no recollection of this moment that was so incredibly life-changing for this girl. In this moment, Drew Dudley fostered belonging. In his talk, he explains how if we continue to make our definition of leadership something so out of our reach, we'll never be the change we want to see in the world. He says, if you change one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, and one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you change the whole thing. That is my absolute favorite line in the talk. So, our big question this year is how can we foster belonging in a time when we seem to have so many reasons to be divided? How can we do this in a year when we need it most? I'll let you in on something. It's not going to be carried by grand gestures. It's going to be fueled by little things that, done over and over, become exponential. And I see it already. On my first day in Walker House, a couple people posted signs on their doors with their names and their phone number and their social media, just so no one would ever feel alone. Today, if you walk through Walker, almost every single person's door looks just as welcoming, and you can feel it. It's a chain reaction. It just goes to show, wherever you are, no matter how little or how much you feel you have to offer, we can create belonging wherever we go. Leave thoughtful notes. Send that sweet email. I guarantee you that it'll make someone smile. Go all out in birthday cards. Tell people you're proud of them, and congratulate people, even if it's for the littlest things. Recognize the good that people do, and be a little vulnerable if you have to. I actually cry a lot, but it's for the best reasons, especially in a time where most of what we know is out the window. Sometimes I just have days where I'm so overwhelmed with joy about how wonderful every little thing really is, and I just can't help but get a little teary-eyed. I keep every sweet note, email, and birthday card. I remember when people ask me how I am. I even remember my grade 1 teacher who made me feel so welcome. And it's because I've totally lucked out in my life with the people around me in this community. But the thing is, we all deserve people who make us feel like we belong. We all deserve somebodies who make us feel like we're somebody. Oops, spoke too soon about the crying. We all deserve people who let us know that we belong and that we all become successful together. And if you can't find that person right away, I challenge you to be that person. Do what you can for others. One of my favorite phrases that I came across on my all-time favorite app, Pinterest, goes like this. Be genuine. Listen without interrupting. Support without pretending. Share without hesitation. And speak without reward. We could all stand to be a little extra thoughtful, a little extra generous, and a little extra welcoming. We don't need to be perfect because that's not the point. By rooting for the success of others, we get happy just at the sight of other people being happy. What real leaders want most is to see other people find the leader in themselves. And by doing this, being selfless almost becomes being selfish in the best way possible. Simply because the very sight of someone else knowing wholeheartedly that they belong sparks joy for all of us. So, wherever you may find yourself in life, always remember to build your table a little longer, share the joy a little further, and foster a little community wherever you go. And finally, even if we don't know each other yet, Just know that I'm rooting for you. Thank you. Now, will you please rise for the hymn, Let Us Build a House?